We got our brother Born Mastermind back in the building right here.
Peace, family.
On the screen.
Yes, indeed. Peace, family.
Let's go in. Go ahead, brother. The floor is yours.
Well, first of all, what this particular presentation is about, it's about how this environment, as we speak, is changing. Not only is it changing, but it's changing it's becoming less habitable for the European and more habitable for the original man. And we're going to go all into that. And before we go into that, we're going to go into the science of Asiatic. This is a word that has been misused. A lot of brothers call themselves the Asiatic black man. A lot of people don't really understand this term, and they have a problem when our great ancestors, such as the Messenger, such as Allah the Father, so even Noble Drew Ali, who taught that we were Asiatic. So you have brothers coming with whether or not we Asiatic, whether or not we African. When we go into the science of this word, we now going to have a deep understanding of what the term Asiatic means and how it transcends all other titles, names, labels, and all of that. So we're going to go in right now.
All right, let's go.
So the science of Asiatic, carbon 7 and 14. We about to go in. First of all, that term Asiatic is a term that has its origins prior to the Kabbalah, but it can be found in the Kabbalistic scripts. So when we ask, what is the Kabbalah? The Kabbalah is, or what they say it is an esoteric method, discipline, and school of thought that originated in Judaism. But in reality, it's the esoteric knowledge that the original man gave the Europeans and Caucasians to civilize them from the hills and caves of Europe to put them on their square. And that's how they became Jews, Masons, etc., to be able to rule the world. That's the mathematics, the science, the astronomy that we gave them to put them on their square. Taught them how to cook their food, taught them how to eat the right foods. And this is what we gave to them to civilize them from the hills and caves of Europe when they was walking on all fours like savages, like beasts. And this is the information that they use to this day to hold over your head so that they can control the environment, control economics, control policy, and you have no idea what's going on because you're not in tune with your ancient scriptures and your ancient texts. Let's break this word down, Kabbalah. As you see in the word Kabbalah, you have the Ka, Ba, and Allah. The Ka in so-called Egyptian religion or our ancient Kemetic spiritual systems is a spiritual entity, an aspect of the individual believed to live within the body during life and to survive it after death. And we understand the only thing that's surviving that the physical body leaves is the electromagnetism, the light, which is known as the mind within the body. Then you have the Ba, also in so-called Egyptian religion or Kemetic spiritual systems, is the aspect of the soul represented as a human-headed bird.
Now, I'm sorry, and I don't want to cut your bill.
Go ahead.
But when you say so-called religious Ka in the Ba, I don't think we can say so-called because we know that was the first call.
Well, let's swing it around.
Deal with the Ka and the Ba, that's the first call. That's where all the other religions come from.
Right. Well, when I'm saying,
can't say so-called.
No, when I'm saying so-called,
go ahead, brother.
When I'm saying so-called, see, the European have us think that, you know, all of our ancient spiritual systems and sciences was religion in the way that they give it to you today. When we never believed in mystery gods, we never believed in things outside of self. We always understood that we were connected to the all and that we were the gods that we were talking about in these scripts. So when I say so-called religion, I don't see it as a religion, and I'm certain the way that our ancestors threw it down was not about religion.
Yes, sir.
All right.
I ain't gonna cut your bill.
No doubt. You can add on anytime you need to. So the soul, right? We understand the soul phonetically is the same sound or the same word as soul, which is the Latin root, which means sun, and the sun meaning star. So that's where we receive the electromagnetic energy within this particular system that we absorb as original people and re-emit as well. Then you have the Allah, which is God or the universal mind of infinite blackness or all light. So when you combine the Ka, the Ba, and the Allah, all that is the arm, leg, arm, head. That's what we say in our culture, the arm, leg, arm, head, which is Allah. And this is the secret of all secrets. And I'm going to show you. When you look at the Hebrew letters of Yahweh, You stand those letters up and you have a body. You have the arm, leg, arm, and supreme head. Now, Yahweh means God. You stand those words up and you see that the original man is God. This is the secret that they've always strove to hide from us. This is why they have the sword on the upper part of their head. So when you look at these Masons and these people in these secret societies and submersive groups, such as the Masons or the Rosicrucians or the Illuminati or the Order of the Quest or whatever these names are, whether they're spooky or real, we understand that these Europeans are studying us in secret. And they're not giving us the truth that they actually bow down and worship us and worship the information and the science that we brought to them to put them on their square. You can even see Gay Edgar Hoover up here, who was the head of the CIA, also the founder. Then you got a president, Harry S. Truman, Gerald Ford, many other presidents. Even this cracker right here, Luther Burbank, who was a pioneer in hybrid and genetically modified fruits and vegetables in agriculture. And you see he has the Islam on the top of his hat, but we'll go into that. So that sword on the upper part of this flag is to let you know that if they reveal the secret, that it's us who gave them a chance to clean themselves up and come among us, then their heads will be taken off by the sword. Because once we realize who we are as the original people, and this is what they've been hiding the whole time, then we will take their heads off. Now, I have our great ancestor brother up here, Dr. Ben, and we love Dr. Ben, and he dropped some extraordinary, powerful knowledge and information to us as a people. So I would never disrespect this man or this man's lineage or his legacy. He brought us some great works. However, we must keep in mind the reason that most of our brothers and sisters in the Pan-African movement or the RBG movement has an anti-Islamic stance. And I'm not talking about this pale European, bastardized, mutated version of Islam. I'm talking about the real science of Islam that we used as a practice and built systems that have defeated Europeans for over 1,000 years. And it was brought back in our most recent history by the most honorable Elijah Muhammad Noble Drew Ali, and of course, Allah the Father. Now, as you see, our great brother, he can teach us but so much. Because as you see, he was initiated in the secret orders of the Europeans. He was educated by them, and you see the sword on the upper part of his hat, the sword on the upper part of his flag, which means he cannot reveal the truth of the black man being God. Now, I came to the debate years ago with it was Brother Wesley Muhammad
and Natural
Tahuti. And he put the Honorable Elijah Muhammad on the board, and he was comparing him to the Masons and showing a connection with him and Masonry. But here's one thing he didn't mention in that lecture, was that he does not have a sword on the upper part of his flag. And this is why he revealed the truth that the black man is God. Let's move on. Back to the Kabbalah. Within the Kabbalah, you have what's known as the 4 Kabbalistic worlds. And here's how we're going to break up a lot of confusion that's been around for many, many years. You have the 4 Kabbalistic worlds. One is Atziluth, Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiya, also known as Asia. Asiya, which is also known as Asia. Atziluth basically is the representation of the elements that bring forth fire. So it's the archetypal world, plane of will and spirit, but ultimately it represents fire. Bria, the creative world or emotional plane, represents the elements that bring forth water. Then you have Yetzirah, which is the formative world or the mental plane, which basically represents the elements that brings forth air. And then you have Asiya or Asia, which is the physical world, the material plane, which represents earth. So when you have fire, water, air, and earth, fire is hydrogen. Water is HO2, which is 2 parts hydrogen, 1 part oxygen. Air is oxygen, and earth is carbon. Now, what's known in the Kabbalistic text is that the 4th world, known as Asiya or Asia, is a combination of all the worlds combined, all the 4 worlds combined. So when you take carbon, combined it with hydrogen and oxygen, then you have melanin. Carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen equals melanin, and that's the Asiatic world. So when you hear our great teachers such as the messenger, Elijah Muhammad, or Allah the Father, and they talk about the black man of Asia, they're not talking about a geographical location. They're not talking about a continent. They're not talking about a place on the planet Earth. They're talking about all of these elements that combine to make the physical manifestation of God on this planet. That's the Asiatic world, and that is melanin. So once again, we see it. Even with the Hebrew letters, that's Yahweh, that stand up as God. You have the first world, which is fire. You have the second world, which is water. You have the third world, which is air. And the fourth world, which is earth. So we dealing with hydrogen. We dealing with H2O. We dealing with oxygen. We dealing with carbon. And when you put that all together, again, you dealing with melanin. So we talking about the physical manifestation of God on this plane as the Asiatic black man. And that term supersedes any geographical land masses, any countries, any continents. Is dealing with the elements that are put together to make physical existence on this plane. And that's the term Asiatic. So now that we know, we won't be confused and divided with this person is African and this person is Asiatic and all this, arguing and infighting that we do as original people, because we've been divided and conquered. The Asiatic black man precedes and transcends all of the names and titles. And again, as you see, the arm, leg, arm, supreme head. These are no coincidences. This is all hidden in their sciences. So the reason why the black man is God and the black woman is the womb of God. Before I go into this, I want to say something.
Go ahead.
We have a lot of great brothers and teachers that's teaching this whole black woman is God science.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. But let me tell you something. That is a weakness on the behalf of black men to put the weight on the black woman. The black woman that have had to hold our communities together, because the black man has been emasculated, he's been in prison, and now he's being turned straight into faggotry and homosexuality. But the reality is the black man has always been God. Our ancestors understood this. The science bear witness to it. And the black woman who we respect, who we honor, who we revere, who we protect, who we cherish, has always been the womb of God. The womb that brings the physical manifestation of God to the forefront. You see, it starts with the seed. The seed is the masculine energy. Within the seed is the intelligence, the knowledge, the information, and the womb. Once that seed is placed inside the womb, that seed then cracks within the waters of the womb to bring forth the physical manifestation of that infinite intelligence, of that information, of that knowledge. So the black man has always been God within our ancient spiritual systems, within our sciences, and the black woman has always been the womb of God on the earth. In fact, there's some ancient texts and some ancient spiritual systems that even the Dogon practice, but it goes back before them, where they taught that God and the earth were lovers, God being the masculine principle and the earth being the female principle. So my brothers and my sisters, let's stop this BS about the black woman is God. We cherish her, we honor her, we love her, we protect her, we put her on a pedestal. But the black man is God, because we're going to carry and hold the weight, and she's going to bring forth the life that we emit within her and bring forth the supreme being of God. So let's stop this simp, wimp, pimp shit and get back to what we're supposed to do as men. We are natural leaders. We are the natural leaders by nature. We are the supreme being, and we are the first. A lot of people want to bring up this science about how, woman came first because she had to give birth. Now, cipher, the seed came first. Just like those carbon-based seeds that carried hydrogen and oxygen, which is basically melanin, those carbon-based meteorites that was produced from a masculine star that inseminated the earth and brought forth the first DNA for the first cellular structure on this planet. So we're going to end that garbage right now. Black men, we're going to take back our leadership position, which is our natural position, and lead our women, love, protect, and honor them. And they're going to give birth and be the womb of God. And at the end of the day, we together anyway, because you ain't supposed to separate the black man and the black woman. So there's no better than, greater than, we together. And that's all I'm going to say on that one.
Powerful.
So the reason why the black man is God and the black woman is the womb of God is because of our carbon-based melanin. Now, when you understand melanin, which is a carbon compound, carbon is nothing but condensed starlight. And when I say starlight, don't be confused by the sun, because the melanin that's in our body actually predates the sun. That's why our lessons teach us that we are older than the sun, moon, and stars, because the very carbon and melanin in our body actually predated our parent sun, or what we call parent sun on the planet Earth now. So this carbon is nothing but condensed starlight. This starlight is nothing but condensed universal blackness or cosmic radiation. And that cosmic radiation and universal blackness is nothing but condensed infinite blackness of all light. So there's a complete connection. There's no separation. There's just different forms, different manifestations of the one thing, of the one universal black intelligence, black mind. And this is who we are before our cells became mutated and we grafted something other than self out of us. Carbon, the supreme of elements. What makes carbon the supreme of elements is the fact that carbon has the greatest bonding capabilities than any other element on the periodic table. This is what makes carbon the most intelligent element in the universe. It has the ability to take other elements and form molecular structures and different forms of life. Now, we are actually going through a change and a transition here on the planet Earth. We are changing the carbon-12 on the planet. Most of the carbon that's on the planet at this moment is carbon-12, but it's actually changing and transforming into carbon-7. And we're going to go into that a little bit later, but we're going to tell you why. It has everything to do with the changing of the Earth's magnetic field. What is the Earth's magnetic field? Let's go through a little quick education for those who might not know. Within the core of the Earth, you have iron, mainly iron, a little bit of nickel. Now, in the outer core, it's solid iron. In the inner core, it's liquid iron. Now, as the Earth spins and rotates, that iron is swirling around, producing electricity. Now, just like many videos that I've done in the past, I tell you how when you have electricity, you're going to have magnetism. So the swirling around of that inner core iron, liquid iron, producing electricity, then generates a magnetic field on the Earth. The flow of this energy from the Earth's magnetic south pole to its magnetic north pole, like a bar magnet, that creates Earth's magnetic field. The Earth's magnetic field produces a protective cocoon, and here's where it gets tricky, around the Earth, called the magnetosphere. Invisible, the Earth's magnetic field can be felt by a compass, as the needle will point towards the North Pole, which direction of the magnetic energy flows. Now, when it talks about a protective cocoon, we have to understand what this means, because this doesn't necessarily refer to the aboriginal people of the planet Earth. We come natural with the Earth. We came before the Earth and we came with the Earth. So we don't need any protection from the Earth or the solar system surrounding the Earth or the galaxy or the universe in general. So when they talk about a protective cocoon, we understand this is through the lens and through the eyes of Europeans who are unnatural to this Earth. The Earth's magnetic field is the planet's only protection, here we go again, against harmful radiation from the sun. We don't need protection from that and interstellar sources. It shrouds the Earth based on how it's generated at the Earth's core, which is not uniform in shape. It surrounds the Earth upwards to 40,000 miles in space. The Earth's magnetic field is the planet's only defense against the sun's formidable electromagnetic radiation. Again, we have shown and proved that carbon-dominant, carbon-based, melanin-dominant people are electromagnetic energy in a condensed form. So we don't need protection against it. We have allowed ourselves to become mutated and grafted as a people, so we are weaker. We're not in our supreme state, but we don't need protection from the Earth's magnetic radiation or the sun's electromagnetic radiation. Here's where we're about to go a little bit deeper with how the planet is changing. Pole shifting, pole reversal, and the changing of the Earth's magnetic field. When I talk about poles, I'm talking about the north and south poles that's generated by the core of electricity producing a magnetic field around the Earth. You have what's called poles. The Earth's inconsistent magnetic field. This is an article by NASA. Our planet's magnetic field is in a constant stage of change, says researchers who are beginning to understand how it behaves and why. Scientists have long known that the magnetic pole moves. James Ross located the pole for the first time in 1831 after an exhausting Arctic journey during which his ship got stuck in the ice for 4 hours. No one returned until the next century. In 1904, Roald Amundsen found the pole again and discovered that it had moved at least 50 kilometers since the days of Ross. The pole kept going during the 20th century, north at an average speed of 10 kilometers per year, lately accelerating to 40 kilometers per year, says Newit. At this rate, it will exit North America and reach Siberia in a few decades. Keeping track of the North Magnetic Pole is Newit's job. We usually go out and check its location once every few years, he says. We'll have to make more trips now that it's moving so quickly. Earth's magnetic field is changing in other ways too. Compass needles in Africa, for instance, are drifting about 1 degree per decade. And globally, the magnetic field has weakened 10% since the 19th century. When this was mentioned by the researchers at a recent meeting of the American Geophysical Union, many newspapers carried the story. A typical headline: the Earth's magnetic field collapsing, or is Earth's magnetic field collapsing? And this is what's going on right now. The Earth's magnetic field has been weakening for some time now. It's been weakening for decades and nearing a possible collapse. Scientists understand that Earth's magnetic field has flipped its polarity many times over the millennium. So this is not new. This is natural. This is something that the Earth is doing quite naturally. The problem is, it's going to have harmful effects on those who are not natural to the Earth. The original people, we've been here for millions, billions, some even say trillions of years, and we survive and continue to live on. So this is something that's very natural, and we have the DNA and we have the biological makeup to not only survive it, because there's nothing that we actually have to survive, but actually live through the transition, and we will actually evolve and rise and become even more superior as a result of this transition, which we'll talk about. Scientific America. The Earth's magnetic field flip could happen sooner than expected. Changes measured by the swarm satellite show that our magnetic field is weakening 10 times faster than originally predicted, especially over the Western Hemisphere. Now that's very important to understand. Why is it weakening faster over the Western Hemisphere? What does the intelligence of the Earth and the universe know that is a section on the planet that must be wiped out and cleaned out of mutated people? Because it's only the mutated people that's not going to survive. Changes measured by the swarm satellite over the past 6 months shows that the Earth's magnetic field is changing. Shades of red show areas where it is strengthening, and shades of blue show areas where it is weakening. So they're showing you that it's weakening over the Western Hemisphere, and there's certain places where it's actually strengthening a bit, such as over the southern Indian Ocean. So we see where this is going. Changes in the Earth's magnetic field lead to renamed Oakland Airport runways. Let me go to the bottom. Airport runway numbers are not arbitrary like street names. They actually designate the runway's direction. The system is simple. Take your magnetic compass direction and degrees from 0 to 360. Round off to the nearest 10 and drop the 0. Pilots can see the runway's destination right on their own aircraft compasses. So airports have had to rename their runways, their runway numbers, because the pole is shifting and they can't calculate. Well, they're miscalculating exactly where planes are going to land now because the compass is moving. Starting in the runway 29, almost 2 miles long. But this October, that changed. Runway 27 was forced by the authorities to become runway 28. Runway 29 became runway 30, and a long tradition was ruptured. Or was it? So they're telling you that the poles are shifting to the point that they now have to change runway airport numbers to land the plane properly. So what's this going to mean? A weaker magnetic field or magnetic field collapse equals unprotected, and I put that in quotations because remember, we don't need protection from solar wind, solar radiation, and cosmic radiation. This is what the Europeans are afraid of. This is what the chemtrails are about. This is what the whole global warming phenomenon is about, and scaring everybody to death. What is solar wind? Solar wind is a stream of energized charged particles, primarily electrons and protons, flowing outward from the sun through the solar system at speeds of as high as 900 kilometers and at a temperature of 1 million degrees Celsius. It is made of plasma. Cosmic radiation. Cosmic rays are immensely high energy radiation, mainly originating outside of the solar system. They may produce showers of secondary particles that penetrate and impact the Earth's atmosphere and sometimes even reach the surface. Composed primarily of high energy protons and atomic nuclei, they are of mysterious origin. Now we know they're not of mysterious origin because most of our ancient texts spoke about a time when the devil would be burned up, or when the enemy would be burned up, or when the pale fox would be burned up, or when the pale people would be burned up. This is all in our ancient texts. So none of this is mysterious. None of this is unknown. This is things that we've been teaching in our ancient spiritual systems and sciences. Modern science has just now caught up to it. As you can see on this chart, from 1880 to 2000, you see the temperatures rising. So the planet is warming. In fact, they say the 10 warmest years and the 134-year record of all have occurred since 2000, with exceptions of 1989. The year 2015, which was last year, ranks as the warmest on record. So the planet is heating up, it's warming up, and they know about it. Not only do the modern scientists know about it, but those who are initiated in the secret societies of the Masonic orders and Illuminatis and orders of the Quest and so on and so forth, they understand why. Because our teachers, our ancient scientists gave them this information, and they knew that an end would be coming for them. Sunlight damages DNA even in the dark. This article is speaking about how even as Europeans leave the sun after exposure to UV radiation, the radiation is still damaging them even inside, in the dark, after hours from being in the sun. So the sun is their natural enemy. They also talk about DNA damage. And we know our DNA carries the information of who we are to be, our physiology, our characteristics, so on and so forth. So you have what's called DNA damage. But we know that doesn't occur for us. Solar news cycle, DNA, magnetic fields, and biological information transfer. This is extremely important so you can see the connection between electromagnetic energy and our DNA. So there's a problem when one people's DNA is being destroyed, and we're going to show you how another people's DNA will be enhanced by more radiation entering our Earth. Recent scientific studies involving DNA, water, the environment, and magnetic fields lend support to the hypothesis that magnetic fields can carry biological relevant information. The authors of a 2011 study conducted by Lobo Nuriat, Luc Montagnier et al. Say DNA in their experiments teleported itself to distant cells through electromagnetic signals. Furthermore, they indicated that this information could instruct the recreation of DNA when the basic constituents of DNA are present and coupled with extremely low electromagnetic frequency fields. Such low electromagnetic frequency fields ones that are able to stimulate DNA information transfer could come from sources such as Schumann renaissances. So what they're telling you is there's a connection between electromagnetic fields and DNA. The restructuring of DNA. So when we go back and we see that DNA are causing some people, mutated people, Caucasian.
DNA damage causing.
Right, DNA damage. So when we see that solar radiation and cosmic radiation are causing DNA damage to mutated people, this article is talking about how the connection between electromagnetic fields and the restructuring of DNA, building it back, not destroying or damaging. So who are they talking about? We know who they're talking about. Thus, some scientists surmise solar and geomagnetic activity could affect human health and behavior down to the level of DNA. We're going to keep moving. So here's where it gets interesting. As we move from carbon-12 on the planet Earth to carbon-7, carbon-12, which consists of 6 electrons, 6 protons, and 6 neutrons, 666. That's the rule of the devil. And the reason why it's the rule of the devil, because as long as we were operating on carbon-12 level, that's when we were able to be infiltrated by nitrogen, infiltrated by European thought. This is when we became weaker from our previous supreme state. So carbon-12, or 666, 6 electrons, 6 protons, 6 neutrons, is the rule of the devil, but we're about to move into carbon-7, which is the rule of God. Now, carbon-7 consists of 6 protons, 6 electrons, and 1 neutron. So we're going to be releasing 5 neutrons. And when you add up the 6 electrons, 6 protons, and 1 neutron, what you have is 13. And Europeans always had a fear of the number 13. But it's considered carbon-7 because it adds the amount of protons and neutrons. And this is what we're moving into, from carbon-12 on this planet to carbon-7. And that goes for the entire planet, as well as the carbon melanin-based dominant individuals. And as we spoke about earlier, and I spoke about in many of the presentations done here, even at the Evolution Conference, when we talk about the carbon-based meteorites that actually carried DNA to this planet, the ingredients for DNA. Not only did they carry the ingredients for DNA, but these carbon-based meteorites, which were composed in third generational stars or stars 3 generations ago, not only do they contain the information for DNA, but they contain hydrogen and oxygen. So that in itself is melanin. So we have an idea that it is melanin that actually formulates and produces DNA. Grafting mutated cells into Caucasians. So after an organism dies, the ratio of carbon-12 to carbon-14 changes into nitrogen. This is very interesting. In fact, let's go here. Carbon-14 actually gains a proton and loses a neutron and becomes nitrogen. So this is proof that Europeans was grafted. We became mutated as original people and then grafted those cells into a people, into a mutated people known as Europeans or Caucasians. And it's proven that this was done under very low sunlight areas. There were certain catastrophes that happened on this earth that produced tons of smoke and sulfur in the air that blocked out sunlight. And it was during these periods of very low sunlight on the earth where we began to mutate, where the carbon-14 in the atmosphere began to convert into nitrogen. And this is why there's so much nitrogen in our atmosphere. The European himself is nitrogen based. However, what's going to happen is as more radiation enters our atmosphere, as more information enters our atmosphere, the nitrogen is then going to lose a proton and gain a neutron and become carbon-14 once again. And this makes the environment less habitable for the European, who is nitrogen-based, is going back to carbon. Just as our bodies and all the rest of the carbon on the planet is going to change from carbon-12 to carbon-7 to become more to become less dense, so we can attenuate and modulate and absorb this new coming radiation as original people. So is the environment itself. The nitrogen will be converted back to carbon-14, which only happens. Carbon-14 only decays into nitrogen as a form of death. So we were dying. We were in a stage of death when we grafted the mutated cells from within us that became Caucasians and Europeans. So again, as the cosmic rays bombard the upper atmosphere, producing fast-moving neutrons, these neutrons collide with atmospheric nitrogen atoms, producing radioactive carbon-14. So the environment itself is going to become much more habitable for us. Cosmic radiation causes the reverse and the rise of carbon-based melanin-dominant people. Let's keep it moving. Carbon-14, so-called discovered 1940 at UC Berkeley. Formed in the upper atmosphere from nitrogen. Now, we know it doesn't come from nitrogen, right? Nitrogen is something that's far into the planet, and it happened when the planet couldn't get the amount of radiation and sunlight that the planet naturally uses and naturally needs. So we're not going to say it formed from nitrogen, but we understand in the context of what they're speaking of, with all the nitrogen that's currently in the atmosphere, when these solar neutrons hit this nitrogen, it will convert it back into carbon-14. Carbon-14 becomes carbon dioxide. Carbon-14 dioxide absorbed by plant life, then the animals eat it, and that means us too, because Europeans want to classify us in the animal kingdom, even though we ain't no goddamn animals. When we eat this plant life, we'll absorb the carbon-14, which is a denser form of the carbon-12 we currently are, and much denser form than the carbon-7. However, it's much better and less dense than the nitrogen that's been in our atmosphere.
All right, you on.
So the nitrogen that's in our soil and in our agriculture is going to go back to being carbon-based, which is more habitable, which is more compatible to carbon-based, melanin-dominant, original black people. More solar and cosmic radiation, solar winds into the earth and convert nitrogen to carbon-14, making a less inhabitable environment for Europeans and an increase in skin cancer, melanoma, and DNA damage for carbon-melanin deficient people, Caucasians. This is why they fear global warming so much. This is why they spray the chemtrails and put up sulfur clouds. This is why they try to get you on the bandwagon and everything is anti-carbon, because they understand what's going to happen. There's scientists that understand it, but definitely within their secret orders and their initiated systems, they understand this even more clear, because we told them what was going to happen to them. The Dogon predicted the burning of the pale fox, which I've done in a different lecture. So check that lecture out. Sirius, the Golden Age and the Rise of the Black Gods are going to the Dogon tribe. They predicted the burning of the pale fox. So who was the pale fox they were referring to? The Honorable Elijah Muhammad's prediction of the burning of America now makes sense when you understand that the Earth's magnetic field is weakening over the Western Hemisphere most and allowing cosmic and solar radiation at a high and alarming rate to Europeans into the atmosphere. And they're receiving more sunburned skin cells, melanoma, cancer, so on and so forth. So when you talk about the fall of America and the burning of America, there's scientific evidence that adds up to that as we speak. As now on the flip side, for the original melanin dominant black man and black woman, as more cosmic and solar radiation, solar winds into the earth, nitrogen converts to carbon-14, which is better for us because it's carbon-based as opposed to nitrogen. Our carbon 12 then converts to carbon 7, making us less dense, making us much more able to absorb and modulate the incoming radiation. Not only will carbon 12 convert into carbon 7, but the DNA of carbon dominant people will change. It is changing as we speak. Our DNA are going to go from a double strand to a triple strand or 3-strand DNA. So what they call junk DNA, just like in the article I mentioned earlier, the connection between electromagnetic fields and the restructuring of DNA, or the connection of electromagnetic field and the information they contain to awaken DNA, what you call junk DNA will then be awakened, and we will have a triple strand DNA, thus containing more information, more innate knowledge within the original people. This is not a game. Again, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and I bring this man up often. I bring this man up often because we haven't seen in our time span, within the last 100 or so years, a man whose science have not only been so consistent with most of the ancient teachings, from the Dogon to the so-called Mayan or Olmec or Sheaf civilizations to Kemet to all of our ancient spiritual texts. Not only were they extremely consistent, so he never said he made it up, but also the work that he proved on this planet in terms of building schools, building institutions, building economics, and standing black men and women up on their square and on their feet, but also the science that modern science is just now catching up to, at least that they're admitting to just now catch up to. So here's a letter from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad to Johnny X. Boyd in 1969. He says, Allah taught me that he will bring the moon back to its rightful place, and for that, and that for a moon, he will use a particular star. We will have no need for that old type of moon, for the star will have power to contain and hold our waters, as well as another planet. He says that there will even be a new form, a new life from our waters. He said there will even be a form of new life from our waters. This will be the life of a new covering of the earth. As you already know, the devil has destroyed the beautiful covering that she once had. So what star is the Honorable Elijah Muhammad talking about? We already talking about the restructuring of DNA as a new life form. But what star is the messenger talking about? And you know I've gone into this in past presentations. He's talking about the Sirius star system. Sirius A, known by the Dogon tribe as Sigitolo, Sirius B, known as Potolo, and Sirius C, known as Myatolo by our ancestors in the Dogon tribe. He understood that this was a 3-star system that our whole solar system orbits. And as we orbit, as our planet, as our whole solar system orbits the Sirius star system, it takes about 24,000 to 26,000 years, approximately 25,000 years, for them to completely orbit each other. And the way that our ancestors have always calculated this through the ages was going through the 13 constellations. A little over about 2,000 years our solar system lasts in each of the 13 constellations. So let me take you to the number 13 real quick. The 13th constellation, which is rarely talked about, is Ophiuchus. Now, normally when we talk about the 12 constellation system or the 12 zodiac signs, it's Ophiuchus and Sagittarius is being combined. So understand that. You know how the white man has a fear of 13, and for the sake of mathematics they strive to make everything simple and easy because they don't have the high scientific mathematical brain by nature that we and our ancestors had. So they normally talk about a 12 zodiac system because they're combining Ophiuchus and Sagittarius together. And there's a reason why they're combining it and just leaving it at 12 as opposed to 13. But the 13th so-called zodiac, known as Ophiuchus or Serpentarius, which we're actually entering now this month, at this time of the month, between the 26th and the 29th of November, today's November 28th, we are entering this star system, not Sagittarius, but Ophiuchus. Now, as you can see, the star system here, they used a symbol for Ophiuchus as a man holding a serpent, right? Now, we understand in ancient Kemet, the serpent represented energy. It represented electricity. The double serpent represented electromagnetic energy. So when you see a man holding the serpent, that's letting you know there's a man that's holding the electricity. There's a man that's holding the energy that we produce as a people. So we have to be careful, because that's the only way that they can survive and live on this planet, is through the energy that we give them. So according to Precession of the Equinoxes, approximately every 13 years, which is half of the 24 to 26,000 years it takes to make a complete orbit around Sirius, our Earth slows down and changes the direction of its spin. So as it gets here, our solar system, our Earth slows down and actually changes the direction of its spin. Science and technology. Earth's rotation slowing down. French time lords add 1 second to 2015. Software companies are bracing themselves for glitches after the Paris Observatory announced it will add a leap second to 2015. The year 2015 will be slightly longer after the Paris Observatory announced it was adding a leap second to clocks this summer. So as you can see, this is not spookism. This is not an old wives' tale. This is not old mystery God teachings. This is real bona fide science, to the fact that they are actually having to add seconds to the clock as the Earth's spin is slowing down. Let's go into this NASA article. NASA explains why June 30th will get an extra second. Let's go down to the bottom. The day will officially be a bit longer than usual on Tuesday, June 30th, 2015, because an extra second or leap second will be added. Earth's rotation is gradually slowing down a bit, so leap seconds are a way to account for that, said Daniel McMillan of NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center in Greenbelt, Maryland. So they're having to compromise for the slowing down of the Earth. The Earth's spin is slowing down. And according to our ancient teachers in Precession of the Equinoxes, not only will it slow down, but it will switch polarities. So here we go. As we get to this point in our transition, in our orbit around the Sirius star system, as we get here as what they call entering the age of Aquarius, leaving the age of Pisces, so-called, those are the Greek terminology for it. As we get to this point, the Earth begins to slow down. It slows down its spin, and as it slows down its spin, remember, it's the electricity, it's the liquid iron within the inner core of the Earth. As it's swirling, produces the Earth's magnetic field. So as the spin slows down to possibly even a complete stop, the Earth's magnetic field weakens and possibly collapse. Now, as the Earth's magnetic field weakens and or collapse, you have an influx of solar radiation, solar winds. Nitrogen is converted back into carbon-14. So when this new coming cosmic radiation and solar winds strike those nitrogen atoms, it converts it back into carbon-14. And what that represents is melanoma, the increase of skin cancer, and DNA damage for the melanin deficient. So if you are melanin deficient, without this so-called protective covering, but it is a protective covering for them, with this protective covering weakening and possibly collapsing altogether, you're going to see an increase of the skin cancer. You're going to see an increase of the burning. You're going to see an increase of the melanoma and the DNA damage. the loss of information within these entities. Now, on the flip side, as our environment becomes more habitable for us, as the nitrogen is removed from the environment, our carbon-12 converts into carbon-7, making us, again, less dense. So we're able to absorb and modulate this electromagnetic frequency and the enhancement of our DNA. Our DNA is going to go from a 2 to a triple string DNA, therefore awakening information that is present, but what they call junk DNA at this time. But with the communication between this electromagnetic energy and this solar radiation and this cosmic radiation, this information, because we are one and the same, so as our body communicates with itself, you will see strings of DNA awakening. Now, do we have to be concerned as original black people? If we have the right diet, if we're in the right environments, if we are taking care of our carbon-based melanin as a people, we don't have anything to fear as the Earth's magnetic field weaken or collapse, because due to the influx of star, solar, and cosmic radiation from within the Earth's magnetic, as the Earth's magnetic field weakens or collapse, it will cause original black people to produce a magnetic field as a result of photovoltaic effect. And what I mean by that is, to produce a photovoltaic effect, you need a semiconductor. Once radiation strikes a semiconductor, that semiconductor converts this radiation into electricity. So what happens, as melanin is a super and semiconductor, as we receive and absorb this cosmic star and solar radiation, we then convert it into electricity, and that electricity will produce a magnetic field of our own. So we will have a natural magnetic field that we produce as melanin dominant people. And I'm going to end it on that, because I don't want to be too long-winded, because there's so much information in this particular presentation, so we can prepare and be ready for this transition. And I want our people to understand that the universe, the planet, the cosmos is on our side. And we came prior to the planet, we came with the planet, and we will always be here as original people. Yet our enemies have an end, and that end has been predicted in many of our sciences and systems, and that end is now coming. And even the messenger himself told you that the end of the white man's rule was in 1914, but he would be given an extension of time until we got ourselves together. And that extension of time is for us to separate, for us to build our own system, and take care of ourselves in the way that we must take care of ourselves. However, the universe is highly intelligent. The planet is highly intelligent. So whether we are on point or not, this man will be removed from the planet, and a new black man will be placed on this earth. And we're going to end it out like that. So, again, the ways to prepare for this, our carbon is already becoming less dense. As we move closer and closer to the Sirius star system, we will become less and less and less dense till we are completely light bodies, bodies of pure light, electromagnetic frequency. And as we get closer and closer, our bodies will get less denser. Now, we are in a transition at this moment where our carbon-12 is converting into carbon-7, making us less dense, removing 5 neutrons. Thus, the way you can be compatible with this change of density, with becoming less dense, is to make sure what you are consuming mentally, physically, and so-called spiritually, When you're eating heavy foods, overly cooked foods, heavy foods, meat products, products with a lot of nitrogen within them, what happens is you make the body denser. This is the foundation to all disease and sickness. You make the body denser. But as we learn to eat a plant-based diet, not just a plant-based diet, but to consume more raw, living, electric foods, to not overeat, but fast and reduce the amount of intake of food that we are consuming to make our bodies less dense, just like a cell phone in a tunnel. You have a cell phone in a tunnel and it doesn't quite receive the signals that it will receive when it's out in the open. And that's the same as our body. Our body is a condensed form of electromagnetism, but it's also a conductor. It's also a modulator. So for us to receive the signals, for us to receive the waves that we need to receive at the highest level, we must lessen the density of our bodies. And the way we do that is through what we consume in terms of food. Also, we consume in terms of education. Get that garbage BS education out of your mind. We are the original people. We contain everything within us. Education, the root word to education is educe, which means to bring out. So we must remove our children from these schools that are indoctrinating them with all this foolishness. Because as original people, we contain everything in the universe. So we don't need indoctrination. We need true education where we're bringing out the information, the knowledge, the science that's already within us. The European who has been grafted, who has lost the information, who has lost the components, the minerals to contain all that the universe possesses, he needs to be indoctrinated because he's without. So you have to put within him. We also must remove the baggage and the density of religion and believing in something outside of self, and the garbage and the technology that they add to our spiritual systems and spiritual books. This all adds baggage. This all adds a certain amount of density to our intelligence, density to that inner knowing that we have. Also through politics, through every other way that we consume, we must have an understanding that until we release this density, until we become less dense and become closer to the light bodies that we are becoming and closer to the pure form of electromagnetic energy that we are, we're going to continue to receive problems. We're going to continue to have issues. But as we build the systems of our own, as we get back in tune with our right plant-based diet that's natural to the planet, that contains the seed, that contains the carbon, that contains the information within it, as we get back in tune with our ancient spiritual systems and remove this religion and stop looking for something outside of self, but understanding that we are the supreme beings, the God and the womb of God, to bring the highest intelligent force in the universe to this planet, we will no longer look outside of self, but we will understand that it is us. We go back to our pure form of education. We will understand who we are and be able to solve all the needs and the issues that we have on this planet by looking within. It's all within us. And until we design these systems and build these nations that's based off of our true black biology and physiology, we will always be enslaved. We will always be second-class citizens. We will always be in bondage, and we will never truly see our true liberation until we do. So as I'm waiting for the brother Sadnetta to return, I'm going to say peace. If there's any questions, feel free. I know we live. Feel free to ask the questions. Call in. I'm sure that you have the number. I don't know the number offhand. Call in. Type in the questions. And I will offer whatever it is that I have to offer. But we have to get back. And like I said earlier, to my brothers out there, and to the sisters, but particularly my brothers, stop placing the weight of this planet and this world on the black woman. Period. The black man is God. The black woman is the womb. The black woman is the womb that takes the seeds that we provide to bring God to this planet Earth. She is the portal. She is the portal to take the intelligence. It started from this earth plane. From this earth plane. Because there's no beginning and there's no ending. But from this earth plane, It started with the carbon-based meteorites that was produced inside of a masculine star because it produced a seed. That seed inseminated the earth, which is a female, which is a black woman. The earth existed before. The black woman existed before the earth, but the earth is a black woman. So as those carbon-based meteorites of melanated seeds was produced in a star and inseminated the earth, then you have the first DNA and cell structure on the planet. And this is how we grew from single-cell organisms to multicellular organisms. It's always from the masculine seed being inseminated into the womb of the black woman.
Brother, I hear you going the fuck in right now. It's always a blessing. I had a brother just text me and said he was waiting for born Mastermind Allah to come back to the couch on House of Consciousness.
Yes,
but brother, I'm saying you definitely dealing with some science here. You know, we've been missing the science.
Right.
And I thank you for coming back, blessing the platform. What can you tell us the new shit that's going on right now?
Right.
Hillary.
Man.
Trump.
Right.
What's going on with this situation, brother?
Now, as we understand, presidents are selected. We understand that they are not elected.
Right.
It's all a game. So Donald Trump, if you look at the history of politics, when you have an incumbent president who's been in for 8 years, the opposite party always gets in next, for the most part. You know, as a general rule, right? The opposite party always gets in, and that's very simple and plain. The only way these Europeans who are parasites and cancer by nature can exist on this planet is to feed off of the energy of its host. We, the original people, are its host. So they have to keep us involved. They have to keep us excited about politics. They have to keep us voting. They have to keep our energy, because the more we focus on them, the more that they receive enough of our electromagnetic energy so they can live. Once we rise to our higher state, our energy will be even too powerful for them and we'll remove them from the planet. So with that being said, Trump now is the balance of Obama. During the Obama years, you had a bunch of, crackers and rednecks that was very upset. And these crackers, they will revolt. They have guns. They will revolt. They're already talking about anti-government, overthrow government. So Trump is the balance to that. See, niggas been rocked to sleep for 8 years through Obama. So Trump is the natural balance to now rock these crackers to sleep for 4, however many years they take to rock these crackers back to sleep. Although Trump himself don't identify at all with these poor crackers, because he's never been a poor cracker. He's been a wealthy cracker. Yep. So it's nothing but a game. It's nothing but a dupe. They are all in the same bloodline. You trace Trump's bloodline. Trump and Hillary are cousins. You trace their bloodline all the way back to the so-called royal monarch of England, just like Obama, just like every other U.S. president. In fact, there was a study that said all U.S. presidents was related except one, and I doubt they let one slip in, so that's just one who got away. But all United States presidents not only are related, but can be traced back to the royal throne and monarch of England. So it's all been one goddamn family that we've been dealing with. They're not going to give you the opportunity to vote for CEO of their corporation. It has to be taken down and overthrown and removed, and then we have to bring a new family, and that's the entire original human family of the planet Earth. That's human family of the planet Earth.
Yes, sir.